Okay, so good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm just going to leave it a minute or so, just while a few more people join us for this joint webinar between Ascertia, LAWTrust and Entrust. So as I said, we've just got a few more people joining, so we're just going to leave it a few more seconds. Just while we're doing that, let me just go through a quick bit of housekeeping. Well, actually, let me just introduce myself. I'm Victoria Allen, Senior Marketing Manager at Ascertia, and I'll be moderating today's webinar. So today we're going to be discussing how organisations can leverage high trust remote signing. But before we start, just a quick bit of housekeeping. So as you can see, all participants are on mute. Today's webinar is being recorded and we'll send out a recording after the session. And if you have a question, click on the Q&A button and we will try and answer some of these at the end of the session. If you do have any questions or want to speak to a member of the Ascertia, Entrust or LAWTrust teams, just please email marketing@Ascertia and we'll come back to you. So let's start today's webinar. I'm really pleased to introduce Ascertia CRO Sam Crook. And I'll now hand over to Sam to begin the session. Thanks, Sam.
Thanks very much, Victoria. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this webinar session featuring Ascertia, LAWTrust and Entrust. In this Ascertia section, I'll be introducing high trust remote signing, quite a fast-paced overview, but providing the opportunity to subscribe and connect with us for more information. Just as an intro, Ascertia are all about providing digital trust for organizations across documents, data, people and devices. And that's catering for everyone from individuals to governments to enterprises. And Ascertia PKI and digital signature technologies serve a global customer base and partner network. And we serve those direct and indirect. And we've been delivering products and services since 2001. So specifically today, we'll be talking about high trust remote electronic signatures, and there are many different types of business documents that can benefit from this. It is generally accepted that e-signatures address paper-based challenges, including printing, couriering, storage, etc. And e-signatures lead to significant time and money savings. So generally, organizations are trading in the old ways of doing business, including these old paper processes, and they're moving to the new way, which people demand access to everything from any time, from anywhere, with the demand for an effortless user experience with minimal clicks. And there are some key considerations for effective e-signature takeoff, which include the right balance between user experience, trust, and overall solution cost. User experience should not be too involved or too complex. It should be simple, easy, and convenient. Trust is extremely important to to provide identity assurance, prove who signed, ensure data integrity, etc. However, generally, the higher the trust, the higher the cost and the lower the perceived user experience. And the cost should not be prohibitive to the solution as a whole. Another consideration is the full, complete signing process from user authentication through to locking a document from unauthorized change to supplying the workflow evidence report of what happened and when. And for this very short section today, we'll be focusing on the binding of the signer's identity to a document. So at the lower end of the trust spectrum, we have basic electronic signatures, which fulfill a number of key use cases, but generally for simpler, lower trust use cases. And these utilize generic service provider signing keys or generic organizational witnessing keys, which are not linked specifically to the user. So when we talk about high trust, we're generally talking about advanced and EU qualified electronic signatures. specifically in compliance to the eIDAS regulation in the EU, or advanced signatures as defined in other regions where users have individual keys and certificates, or AE signs signatures as they're defined in South Africa. And this means that the user's identity can be bound with the document with their sole control, and that supports non-repudiation. So traditionally, and still present in a number of regions due to regulatory demands, the use cases that wish to sort of apply high trust signatures, the traditional route is via local smart cards or USB tokens, and that's called local signing. And the issue here is that hardware impacts on user experience as a whole. You need to remember the smart card, you need a card reader, you need certain middleware technology, and overall, the use case can become quite tedious, timely, and expensive. So remote signing provides an alternative to local signing. It's a better user experience by removing specialist hardware and middleware components, and it aims to reduce overheads and other costs. The issue is with ensuring the same high trust element when removing an item that the user holds. So remote signing is not just simply transferring the signing keys to the cloud or server side, as the control factor is impacted there. So for this reason, when we talk about remote signing, we're referring to a model based on the EU eIDAS, new rules for qualified signature creation devices to enable high trust signing. And here is how that works and comes together. So I'm just going to play a short video here. Here's an example of a remote signing workflow using Ascertia technology. And this could be from any number of business applications, if you like, SharePoint, Salesforce. The user's signing request is actually passed to the ADSS SAM appliance, and the signature activation module sends a request for authorization via the user's registered mobile device. The user views and approves this authorization request by authenticating to their mobile device. And then a secure authorization request is sent to the SAM, and this message is signed using an authorization key, which is stored on the mobile device secure element. The SAM verifies that the authorization is from the user's registered mobile device, is signed and corresponds, and then the SAM instructs the HSM within to release the user's signing key to perform the signature, and this is returned to the business application. So using advanced or qualified remote signing allows any business application to quickly and easily transform itself to using high trust electronic signatures. And for further information on the standards here, feel free to look into these eIDAS protection profiles and contact us for more details. Ascertia was actually first to market with the new rules compliant and common criteria certified qualified signature creation device remote signing product, which we call the ADSS Server SAM appliance. And many trust service providers are using Ascertia technology for back-end trust services. But even if they're not, the Cloud Signature Consortium facilitates a link between business applications, signing platforms, and the trust service provider environments. And that promotes standardization in the market and interoperability with a flexible choice for the customer. So trust service providers are used to the high costs in running their environments. They also handle the user onboarding, the vetting, the video registration, and all the high trust infrastructure, web trust audits, etc. And that's an involved process. The business application can now easily connect to trust service providers' back-end services via the Cloud Signature Consortium with a seamless experience. So that means the CSC actually provides choice for different trust service providers as long as they are part of that program. The user environment remains familiar and simple to use while being able to sign using high trust remote signatures, complete in one given session via their preferred remote signing service provider, with no lock-in to that trust service provider either. So it's a lot going on in the back end of this, but keeping the user experience really slick. And here's a list of global trust service providers relying on Ascertia technology for remote signing and other trust services. And we look forward to partnering with many more and adding to this list. So striking the right balance to high trust remote signing is very much achievable in this day and age. We're talking about unique keys for every user, trusted path authorization for signing, easy to use, using the user's mobile device, no specialist hardware involved, and numerous other benefits, including choice, flexibility, and trust. For more information, please do subscribe to our channels, and thank you very much for that whistle-stop tour. And back to you, Victoria.
So moving on, I'm really pleased to introduce our next speaker, Maeson Maherry, CEO at LAWTrust. Maeson, over to you.
Thank you. So LAWTrust has been working with both Ascertia and Entrust very successfully for 15 years already. And we thought it would be interesting to talk about some of the combined solutions that are capable, that really have a business impact, and to have a very brief look at that. We've been busy with small solutions over the years, right through to solutions that have a national impact, like the South African ID card solution, and then also a correction on the slide there, but the STC operation as a trust service provider in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, so really national scale deployments. I think what allows us to help customers is the fact that we operate as a TSP ourselves. We operate a trust center and are accredited ourselves, which allows us to understand what everybody is going through and assist them along their journey. And of course, help customers skill up themselves so that they're not always dependent on a supplier. If we can look at the next slide, you'll see that one of the solution areas that we thought we'd highlight as a case study is probably very closely related to what's happened because of COVID now. With the economic hardship, there's also an increased temptation to steal money inside a business. So something like procurement fraud has been around for a long time, but it's probably getting worse because of the current worldwide economic situation. We've got problems like ghost suppliers that are being paid, fake invoices that are being paid, so there's a real problem there. And we came to realize that the best way to actually sort out a problem like this is to create a behavioral change through applying security technology so that everybody knows that they are properly identified and that whatever they did on a system is immutably recorded. So if we look at the next slide, it shows a little bit of a process flow of the solution, where we start with enrolling a user and doing ID proofing, looking at the facial image, looking at the supporting documentation, and verifying the identity of the party before you onboard them for signature and access at a later stage. You'll hear a lot of what I'm saying, the zero trust principles are coming through. So after you've enrolled the biometric features, say from a face, for example, you've created a strong authentication account. When the user wants to log on to something like a procurement system, they would be prompted for strong authentication. That may be face biometrics, or we could use something else like the Entrust identity services to do strong authentication at that point. We monitor either via screen grabbing or by providing a library to developers of a system that when a sensitive transaction comes along, we force action. And the action that we force is that there's an additional strong authentication, as well as a transaction level signature, which is asked for. Remember, zero trust principles are trust no one, verify everything every time, and that is what we are doing in a very transparent and user-friendly way. The Ascertia ADSS server will then create a timestamp, seal the record, and I love the crypto speak of saying it's an immutably stored record. It's kept forever and it cannot be changed. And in fact, no transaction can be concluded if we don't have the right level of authentication and evidence. And finally, we can then draw forensic reports if investigations are occurring, and the evidence is very defensible, so there's a process flow of how we're doing it. If we look at the next slide, very simple view just of the different role players in something like this. At the top line over there, we'd have a procurement system with somebody wanting to commit a procurement fraud there. We bring together the best of breed components from the different parties in order to give a business answer to this problem, and that really is the role that LAWTrust is most comfortable in playing, is helping put together something like this, and then of course transferring knowledge so that you can continue on with the system yourselves. So maybe just to end off with a final view from a LAWTrust perspective on the last slide, which I'm sure is going to change any second now for me as well, is that we've got real world operational experience with Ascertia and Entrust at a massive scale, and I think that really is valuable to work with anybody if they are considering a solution in one of the areas like the one that I've just mentioned now, so we really would enjoy working with you to give a real success to your business. Thank you.
Thank you, Maeson. And finally, and thank you for stepping in at short notice, I'd like to welcome Simon Taylor, who's Channel Sales Manager at Entrust. Simon, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Victoria. As Victoria said, my name's Simon Taylor. I've been working in the cyber industry for in addition of 12 years now across Northern Europe, Middle East, South Asia, and Africa. And I've seen quite a change over that period of time in customers' thinking, working with partners such as Ascertia and LAWTrust. We start to see a real change of attitudes by the customers. So this is a fantastic place to be at the moment and a chance to present to you. So first of all, let's look at the next slide, which is who are Entrust Data Protection Solutions? Well, we've been around since about 1996 in a couple of different guises. You may have heard of the words Encipher or Talis during our history. We've now found a home at Entrust, and we're their stable platform to ensure that trust is provided to solution sets. And I think we've heard the word trust in just about everyone's presentation up to now. So the devices that we supply are all accredited and leveled up from the point of view of international accreditations. But as we look at some of the challenges and risks of going digital as we move forward, we have to recognize that there's rising cybercrime. We also have to recognize that leads to a greatly increased level of privacy regulation. We have to think of IoT as everything connected these days. I prefer the terminology ACT, all connected technologies, because everything from your wearable phone or your Boeing 787 or a building can be considered an IoT device in the modern world. Payment methods are changing, and of course people want to use clouds and multiple clouds to ensure that they're free to use their data and get the best out of their money that they're spending on the protection or the storage of that information and application. So everything that we do is built on this foundation of trust, and as you've heard, trust and zero trust are important methodologies when you're looking at using document signing or technology signing or certification. To have it trusted is of absolute paramount importance. Next slide, please. So what actually do we do as Entrust for DPS? Well, we provide something called hardware security modules, or HSMs. And they provide the highest level of protection for the encryption and the signing keys. This is the safe, if you like, within the bank where the secrets or the valued assets are kept. It means that you as a customer are able to define and enforce your own policy. Now, that could be a policy that your keys can't leave your country or your region. The keys can't be seen by anyone but certain members of the security team. And those keys are generated as per the policy requirements for auditability and compliance. So it's essential to do that. But some customers even have some applications which are so sensitive that they don't want any cryptography going on the open network. So we provide an ability to actually bring that element of cryptography into this hardened device and transact and produce that encryption translation happening within the HSM itself. And then finally, one thing you can't get with software solutions, this is why hardware is required, is the high quality of the random number generator. Encryption is merely a mathematical algorithm. So if you can predict where that algorithm starts, you've got a better chance of predicting where the next step would be. And of course, anything which you can predict some sort of pattern or commonality is very bad from an encryption point of view, because it allows then brute forcing of those types of solutions. So if we move on to the next slide now, we can just look at a little bit of where these can be used from a business case point of view. As I said, digital payments, if we start there, we're starting to slowly see a decline of what we would consider traditional consumer payment methods. Card technology is changing. People are starting not to use cards. They're engaging with other devices which have been provided from digital transformations of organizations like Apple, Samsung, Fitbit, etc. Because we can now use these RFI or digital payment methods to actually transact with different retailers. I mentioned multi-cloud is important because you never want to be tied down to one, but you want to make sure that you stay in control of your cloud-based keys. And you want to make sure that you can move between the clouds without actually having to extract keys from each of the cloud providers. Secure manufacturing, very important, because it's from a consumer point of view, you know you've got a trusted device which you can plug into your systems or use, and know that it's not getting any of the information from a third-party malicious outside source. And from the manufacturer point of view, it's important because they can set up solutions for their next supply to that customer. For instance, ink cartridges, you can't go out and buy any old ink cartridge for your printer. You must have the ones from the manufacturer because the certificate inside it says so. And of course, blockchain, we're seeing more and more blockchain as we move forward. And the whole point of blockchain with its consensus logic is that we must protect those keys. I've got plenty of stories about disasters in blockchain where keys haven't been protected, but we'll save that for another session. So let's just move on from there and actually have a look at the product itself. It's not a complicated product lineup. There are 3 devices in the hardware function, and they do all exactly the same thing. And they all coexist in the same, we call it security world. So you can have different devices depending on the use case. But the nShield Edge is very low cost. It's used for very seldom refresh keys or signs. So this could be for a root CA or something along those lines. It lives in a physical safe day in, day out. You just take it out, authenticate on it when you need to, do the transactions you need to do, and then put it back into the safe. In fact, the central banking system, as we mentioned earlier, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, their bank clearing is based on these, where every bank branch has one and tells the liquidity of the country to the central bank at the end of each day. The nShield Solo is interesting. It's a high-speed device for single application servers. And our most popular product is the Connect in the middle. This allows multiple connections to both physical and virtual servers, allowing you to share that infrastructure. We then wrap that with cloud integration, multi-cloud, as I discussed earlier, remote monitoring and administration. If you as an organization decide that you want to write your own encryption software application, we can have developer packages for that. And of course, time stamping, because time stamping is important if you need to prove beyond doubt when a transaction took place. So let's move on from there and just look in a little bit more detail of where the root of trust for Ascertia signing solutions comes into its own. Well, as you saw in Sam's presentation, we provide that logical and physical protection of the keys. And an important fact in here is that we are an unlimited key store. Because of the way that security world works, it allows us to actually store keys back out onto the storage. So if you've got 25 terabytes of storage, you can have 25 terabytes of keys if you wish to. We actually only hold a master key in the HSM, which encrypts, protects, and wraps the other keys, which are then stored in an outside space. We provide the Ascertia ADSS server with that centralized HSM. And again, it's not just about protecting that, we're protecting those TLS keys, sorry, for that intercommunication as well. So I think we can move on to the next one from there. So nShield as a service. Not all customers necessarily want to be in a position where they want to have the HSMs on site physically themselves on premise. Maybe they want to have that in a cloud facility. Now, depending on the local regulation and certifications and laws in the country that you're at, we can actually offer a cloud-based nShield service. Currently, the 2 data centers are based in the UK and the US, although we are opening in France, Germany, and I've heard rumors that Dubai is going to be opening soon as well. However, if we were down in Africa, my suggestion is to talk directly with LAWTrust, who will be able to come up with solutions which would fit a cloud-based model better for you and allow you to be able to develop a local solution in which your encryption keys would not leave the jurisdiction. This, of course, is available in fully managed or self-managed deployments, depending on the level of expertise and want to get involved that you have. So I think we can move on from the cloud-based service. But just a final bit on some of the good reasons as to why you should do this is that, look, when you're using CSPs or cloud service providers, you can sign up to their encryption and key management solutions, but it is dedicated to them. It makes it incredibly hard for you to move data and key infrastructures from AWS to Azure or Azure to Google. So if you actually keep that independently in your own spoked cloud, it allows you then to be able to move encrypted data between all of the major cloud providers without actually having to try and extract the secret keys from those providers. And depending on the level of service that you've signed up for, there is a chance that you don't even own your keys as well. They will be owned by the service provider who set the policy and regulation around them. So it's really important to actually have that control yourself. On to the next one. So what do we do from a wrap around the product itself? Well, look, LAWTrust are a fantastic partner of ours. They have a lot of these skills internally. My advice is to talk to LAWTrust because they will be able to provide you with a lot of these services directly. But what we can do through them is also work with you on training and certification. We can look at product deployment and complete data protection projects. We have the PKI professional services that we can design, deploy, and manage, again, working with LAWTrust. And of course, maybe something a little bit different is if you have a customized cryptomatic solution requirement, we have a team of R&D which can work on that in a very short timescale. We're a very R&D heavy organization. That's a very good thing. It means we're always looking at the future and the next projects. But we have a very professional team that can actually write encryption code in quite a short time. So I think that actually brings me to the end of my part. If there are any questions, please don't hesitate to put them on the chat or ask them. I'm going to hand back to Victoria now. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Simon. And thanks to all our speakers. While you were talking, a few questions have come through. We've had a couple on HSM. So Simon, can I start with you?
Yes, of course.
Brilliant, thank you. So who in an organisation would manage and define the HSM policy?
Well, a lot of that depends on the size of the organisation, but what we have found through experience is that the HSM itself is not regarded as an IT device. It comes under the management of the security or the compliance or the risk team. And they manage it for a reason. It's because they are trusted individuals who have access to be able to change the key material by coming together as quorums. That's from 5 people, maybe 3 people are needed to authorize a change. So it's not in the realm of the general IT scope managing the solution. And from a policy perspective, the policy is very much down to the customer. Now, obviously, we can help write policies, and so can LAWTrust, and I'm sure Ascertia can as well. But it's really down to the local laws and the local regulations and the best practice that you're trying to follow. So again, we would work closely with the risk and compliance team to actually develop those policies. Or some of the larger organizations use people like KPMG, Deloitte, EY, etc., to write the policy for them to manage, because the policy is the core document which the auditor will always look at first. So it's essential to get that right.
Thank you. And just following on for that, we've got one more on HSMs. What happens if there is an HSM failure?
Oh, always with the doom and gloom failure on yes, so if it fails, it's very simple. I described earlier that we have quite an interesting way of storing keys. We store them out on the actual on the storage array themselves. So first of all, these should always be in a high availability cluster or high availability configuration. If one of the units does go down and we have a very long mean time to failure, it's one of the disappointing things being in sales is that they don't fail often enough to make new sales. But it's a simple fact of plugging in a new HSM, enrolling it into the security world, and then it will have instant access to all of the available keys which are already existed. So you're up and running very, very quickly when it comes to a disaster recovery or a failure situation.
Great, thank you. And Sam, if I could just direct a question at you. What do you see as the biggest challenge companies face when implementing a successful digital transformation project?
Yeah, it's a very good question, and I think we've addressed it on one of our marketing videos recently. But you know, with digital transformation, it's heavily involved across the entire business. It might be that smaller organizations are a bit more nimble and agile to put these programs in place and execute them faster. But what's key to them is obviously the buy-in from all of the different areas of the business, and a strong project team to consider things from legality through to efficiency and systems and the right technology. So yeah, quite a few different items go into that to ensure successful rollout. But we touched on, obviously, in the webinar there, on the trust, cost, and user experience. And what we find is that user experience is of utmost importance to adoption and success of any sort of new program, to encourage people to use it.
Great, thank you. And Maeson, just one question has come through for you about LAWTrust's products. Looking to the future, are LAWTrust solutions quantum resistant?
So that's a very serious thing that businesses should be considering, and I don't think they are. You know, so and it's a complex answer. So the quick answer is to say yes, but I think the more important one is to look at why. So an example of it would be that when you're applying signatures, you need to choose the right signature format when you're creating a digital signature. Because if you choose the right signature format, something like PA-DES or XA-DES or something like that, it actually allows you to apply a timestamp around the whole signature, which seals it. And it means that you can add an additional timestamp with new algorithms as they come out, which are quantum resistant, you know. So it's very important that that is a top of mind design criteria for all businesses when they're applying signatures or crypto in their digitalization programs. You know, you've got to work with partners that understand this. We do, and we will help people be quantum or crypto agile in their thinking and in their solutions.
That's great. Thank you so much. That's all the questions we've had come through. So I just finally want to say thank you all for joining us today. We hope you found it interesting. A recording of the presentation will be available shortly. And as I said earlier, if you have any questions, you want to speak to a member of the Ascertia, LAWTrust or Entrust team, then please email marketing@ascertia.com. And thank you very much for joining us. Thank you.